And we're live.
Very good. Good evening, everybody. We're just bringing people in for the attendees. I'll wait till clerk page lets me know that everybody's in before I start.
Go ahead, Mayor McFadden. We have 6 attendees in.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Page. I'd call to order tonight's special council meeting of the Township of Cabmonaghan on this Thursday, March 25th. I'd ask for approval of the agenda. We got Deputy Mayor Graham and Councillor Moore. Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Councillor Moore,
Yes.
Councillor Belch,
Yes.
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Mayor McFadden,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham.
Yes.
Motion is approved. I'd ask any members of council to declare any pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof at this time or when the situation arises. Seeing none, there is no closed session. So first we will move into our delegation. Item 6.1, Isabella Fabili, 39 Fernridge Heights, Millbrook. So
Mr. Mayor, we just received an email from Isabella that she's unable to attend tonight due to a personal emergency. I just saw it come through on my phone, so I would expect we won't be receiving her delegation this evening.
Okay, all right, very good. So Madam Clerk, do you want us just to, there's nothing to receive, she didn't attend, so we'll just move on?
I agree, Mayor McFadden.
Okay, very good. Excellent. Then our next item is item 7.1, public meeting. Item 7.1, resolution to open the public meeting. We have a Councillor Huntley and Councillor Moore. Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Councillor Belch,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Mayor McFadden,
Yes.
Councillor Moore,
Yes.
Councillor Huntley.
Yes.
Motion is approved. We've now opened up the meeting to the public. Our first item is item 7.2, introductions from Don Conley from the Township of Cabmonaghan, the Executive Director of Planning and Development. Welcome, Mr. Conley.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through the council. Just wanted today, just for this part, is doing introductions. So, Your Worship, members of council, township staff, and members of the public. As the mayor had indicated, my name is John Conley. I'm the Executive Director of Planning and Development with the Township of Cabmonaghan. And this evening, I wanted to introduce myself as well as those individuals who will be presenting tonight. From the County of Peterborough, I have Mr. Ian Mudd, who's the Manager of Planning for Peterborough County. Ian will be speaking about the plan of subdivision and the official plan amendment before our council tonight. And then on behalf of the proponent, Tower Hill, I also have Mr. Darren Vila, and he has other staff in support to answer any questions. Darren is the President and Director of Planning for Innovative Planning and Solutions. And we're also being joined by key township senior management staff participating at tonight's council meeting, and they're here to answer any questions that may arise.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Conley. All right, our next item, 7.3, plan of subdivision in OPA, County of Peterborough, Caitlin Robinson, planner, and Ian Mudd, manager of planning.
Thank you, Mayor McFadden and members of council. Unfortunately, Caitlin could not attend tonight due to a family matter, so I'm here by myself. For the members of the public, my name is Ian Mudd, and I'm the manager of planning with the County of Peterborough. And I'm here to provide an overview on the subdivision application and the process that's occurred to date on the application. The county is the approval authority for plans of subdivision within the county, and county council delegates the public meeting responsibility to the local municipality and has one member from county council in attendance. And Mr. Jim Whalen is the county appointee, and he will be online with us tonight viewing the meeting. The proposal is for an application for a plan of subdivision that was received by the County of Peterborough and deemed complete to be a complete application on November 28th of 2018. The proposal was originally for a 796 unit/lot plan of subdivision on a 48.1 hectare parcel of land. A revised plan of subdivision was submitted and circulated on November 26, 2020. Additional lands to the west were added to incorporate a proposed school site and a few additional lots. And the plan has further been revised since then again, and is now for 720 lot residential plan of subdivision. The reduction in the total number of units from the original 796 down to the 720 is a result of various inputs from agencies and some redesigns to deal with some of those comments from the various agencies and just part of the review process. The residential units are in various forms ranging from single detached dwellings, townhouses, and residential apartments. An assisted living building and an active seniors building are proposed. There are also a number of blocks proposed and intended to be utilized for stormwater management, open space, walkways, parkland, institutional for a school site. There's environmental protection reserves and also some road widenings. There's 3 access points to the internal road network that come off of Falls Line, and there's 1 access point from County Road 10. The proposed internal roads within the development, and there'll be about 13 of those, they will ultimately be owned and maintained by the municipality of Cabmonaghan at the end of the process. The consulting team for the developer is here today to provide a more detailed review of the development layout in their presentation, so I'll leave it with them to go through the actual specific details of the development. In support of the subdivision application, a related official plan amendment, rezoning amendment was submitted to the municipality to amend the township's official plan. I believe John's report will speak to the details of the amendment in detail. With respect to agency comments, the original draft plan and the revised draft plan was circulated to the applicable agencies for comment. The responses from those agencies on the plan are as follows. The Public School Board, KPRDSB, requested a designated elementary school site within the subdivision, and that's the reason for some of the extension to the west of the original proposal, and the school site is shown on the plan, the new plan. The Catholic School Board requested sidewalks be installed within the subdivision. The French Catholic School Board had no comments. Hydro One had no objections, subject to their typical conditions being implemented, which is fairly standard. Ontario Power Generation had no comments. Enbridge Enbridge Gas Distribution had no objections. Bell Canada, we circulate them, however, it's not within their territory. Nexicom was circulated, they had no concerns. Canada Post, no objections, subject to their typical conditions being imposed. Peterborough Public Health recommended the addition of pedestrian and cyclist connections for the subdivision to the existing pedestrian and cyclist network that exists within the municipality. They recommended designating a percentage of the units as affordable housing and recommended the inclusion of a store or community garden to provide a close walkable food source for the residents within the community. The Ministry of Transportation, the lands are outside of their building and land use permit control area for residential uses. They did note that if commercial components are proposed, that they may be interested in evaluating it. At this point in time, that's not part of the project. Hiawatha First Nation was circulated, and the developer has undertaken consultation on the project with respect to environmental issues on the site. Recently, Hiawatha consultation staff have contacted us and they would like some further consultation on the project, and that is currently being planned and may also include Curve Lake First Nation as well. With respect to peer review comments, the following studies were submitted in support of the development. There was a stage 1, 2, and 3 archaeological heritage assessment undertaken. Stage 4 mitigation is required for a specific portion of the property around the existing dwellings and barn and some areas along the creek. And so we have those studies are essentially reviewed by the provincial ministry. Those studies are undertaken by a licensed archaeologist and must be done in compliance with ministry licensing. And the ministry has advised that the studies to date are satisfactory, and of course the stage 4 is still required. Traffic impact study was reviewed by the County Roads Department, and an addendum to the traffic impact study dated January 7th, 2021 was submitted recently by the applicant. There's no objections by the County Public Works Department. They've suggested some draft plan conditions, including the extension of a dedicated left turning lane on County Road 10, at the New Street B intersection, a right turn lane at the same intersection, the signalization of County Road 10 and Falls Line, and a noise impact study in relation to traffic on County Road 10. The functional servicing report, which involves the stormwater management, was reviewed by the County Roads Department and ORCA, the Local Conservation Authority. This was revised in May of 2020 and was submitted by the applicant for further review. Both County Public Works and ORCA requested clarification on a few items, and staff are waiting on those responses, and the developers working with those agencies working through those issues. The environmental impact study was peer-reviewed by the Otonabee Region Conservation Authority on behalf of the county. An addendum to the report dated September 20th was submitted by the applicant, and further work is required for the proposed stream realignment, and the watercourse design is currently being peer-reviewed. There is some wetland compensation plan is required as part of this development, and I'm sure the developers will speak to that and show those areas. There's also clarification on the potential impacts the proposed trail system from the proposed trail system in the proposed 30-meter buffer around the realigned watercourse. This is required before ORCA will be in a position to issue any permits for that type of work when we get to that point in the plan. A hydrogeological assessment was submitted, and it was peer-reviewed by the county's peer reviewer Stantec. An addendum to the report dated September 14th, 2020 was submitted by the applicant. Stantec has no concerns with the work that was submitted and have advised that some additional information will be required at the detailed design stage. A planning report was also submitted as part of this project. It's being reviewed by both county and township planning departments. An addendum report dated June 2020 was submitted by the applicant. Further rationale and justification is being requested as it relates to the active transportation connections, expansion of settlement area boundary, minimum distance separation from barns, and subdivision criteria prescribed under the Planning Act. And the proponent's planner is working on that and will be providing it to the county and the township. The geotechnical report was submitted as an addendum prepared August 26, 2020, and that's under review by township staff, as well as a financial impact assessment, which was prepared October 25th, 2018. Again, that's reviewed by township staff. So in conclusion, the purpose of this meeting tonight from the county standpoint is to secure comments from the public on this proposal in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act. A number of written submissions have been provided by the public since the application was first circulated in 2018. These will be considered together with any comments received tonight as part of our assessment of the application. The county is not in a position to make a decision on the application at this point in time. And I would ask if anyone wishes to be notified of the county's decision on the application, or should they wish to provide further written comment after this meeting, that they formally make that request in writing or provide those comments in writing. And they may do so by email or regular mail. And they can do that through the contact information that's on the county website. And it was provided with the meeting notice tonight. That's all I have for you, sir.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Mudd. It's the new world we live in. You got to find your mouse on your screen and get it back to your unmute button so you can continue. Otherwise, everybody's telling you that you're muted. So thank you, Mr. Mudd. Madam Clerk, do you want... Okay, we'll proceed with the next one. So the next item then is item 7.3, Plan of Subdivision and OPA County of Peterborough. Nope, we did that. 7.4, Report Planning 2021-08, Plan of Subdivision 15T-18002, Official Plan Amendment OPA 1-18, and Zoning Bylaw Amendment ZBA-07-18. Mr. Connolly.
Through your worship to the rest of council, what you have before you is Planning Report 2021-08, Plan of Subdivision, as you had indicated, 15T-18002, OPA, Official Plan Amendment OPA 1-18, and Zoning Bylaw ZBA 07-18. Recommendations before you and council is that council review and consider all the public and agency verbal and written comments received regarding these applications. And 2, the proposed draft conditions for the plan of subdivision and official plan and zoning bylaw amendments be presented to council at a future date for consideration. Mr. Mudd did a very comprehensive review of the process, also what's before you, the supporting documentation. I can go into the nuts and bolts of the report, but honestly, the next piece of the evening's presentation is going to be from the consultant, so I feel there's a bit of overlap. I'm happy to turn around and add more later on, but I suspect I don't want to take all of Mr. Vila's thunder.
Absolutely good. Thank you, Mr. Conley. And yeah, it's just for everybody's benefit, all the questions will come once we've heard from all of the reports. So you're certainly at that time welcome to raise your questions and ask your questions to each of the individuals that have already made their presentation. So with that, our next item is item 7.5, applicant presentation from Innovative Planning Solutions. Darren Vila, President and Director of Planning. Welcome, Darren.
Thank you, Your Worship. Excuse me. Good evening, everyone. And we're very pleased to be at this stage in the process. As Mr. Connolly and Mr. Mudd have pointed out, there's been a great deal of work that's gone on for this project. It's resulted in some positive changes to the development. And we're here this evening to present the plan to council and members of the public and get input, and then follow up with what we're hoping to be a final submission that would then allow both the township and county the ability to prepare reports for both councils to consider. So if we go to the next slide. So I'm here this evening, as everyone is, I'm sure, aware, on behalf of Tower Hill Developments. The land subject to the application this evening is highlighted in red. It is a portion of the overall land holding, which is outlined in black. So the area under the application has got frontage along County Road 10 as well as Fallis Line. The total area is just over 52 hectares. So we're dealing with 128.75 acres of land. And the overall conditions of this property, I'm sure council is very aware of it, as it's right in your backyard from your municipal office. So we've got land sloping generally from Fallis Line to the northeast towards the tributary that crosses underneath County Road 10. The lands were actively farmed for a very long time, but those operations have ceased following the development of Tower Hill South. And the environmental features, as you can see on the plan, are largely outside of the red area, which is the area proposed for development. So there will be no negative impact to the overall functions of those environmental features. Next slide. So in terms of your current official plan, the designations that apply to this property, there's a series of them. The yellow area is residential. The purple area is institutional. The green area is natural linkage area. And the red line identifies the extent of the proposed development. The area in white are the lands that are currently located outside of the settlement boundary for Millbrook that we are proposing to bring into the settlement area through this application. Next slide. So from a zoning perspective, the township has earmarked the majority of this property for development. You have placed a future development zone, the FD zone, on the majority of the property, subject to the application. The natural linkage area recognizes the existing ditch/watercourse that meanders through the site. And we also have a small portion of land, which we believe will just be a housekeeping item that is in an institutional exception zone, which will be cleaned up through the application. The lands that are outside of the settlement area that we're looking to bring into the settlement area are currently zoned agricultural. Next slide. So Tower Hill voluntarily wanted to hold, Your Worship, a neighborhood meeting. This is not a requirement under the Planning Act, but we felt just based on the magnitude of the project, we wanted to have some additional consultation with the neighborhood. So we did have a neighborhood meeting take place on January 27th. There were some constructive comments received, and we've kind of summarized the comments here. I'm not planning on going through these comments in any detail this evening. I just wanted, if those members of the public were in attendance this evening, to show everyone that those comments had been recognized. And our intent will be to respond to these comments along with any other comments we receive this evening as part of a final submission package back to the township. So as council is aware, this application is part of a master plan community. The lands south of Fallis Line, known as Tower Hill South, are now for the most part fully developed, but the overall framework of this part of Millbrook has been comprehensively planned in accordance with planning policy to develop a complete community. So we've got a wide variety of different uses that are existing within Tower Hill South, as well as proposed within Tower Hill North. The predominant form is residential, but we've got different mixes of residential uses. We've got townhouses, we've got 3 or 4 different variety of single detached home lot sizes. We also have a municipal office. We've got a very beautiful new recreation center that's highlighted in purple. There is also plans under this application to bring forward some affordable housing, some seniors housing in a variety of different ranges that are in the light brown color that are focused around the recreation center as well as the municipal building to create a bit of a core in this new area. And we also have uses, as Mr. Mudd has mentioned, a new elementary school being proposed in a location that has been identified by Kawartha Pine Ridge District School Board, as well as some commercial uses that council has previously approved at the southwest corner of Fallis Line in County Road 10. So overall, the comprehensive plan that you see before you, we are hoping will be a positive influence on the town and bring new residents to the community that can enjoy the municipality and all of the beautiful things that exist within Kevin Monaghan. Next slide. So as Mr. Mudd and Mr. Connolly have mentioned, there's a series of reports that have been completed through this application. These are available for any members of the public or council that are interested in learning a little bit more about the technical aspects that go into making an application and understanding how much actual work goes into the development of a subdivision. So we've listed them here and they are available at the township or county office for viewing. Next slide. So in terms of the application that is currently before the township and county, there has been a slight change from Mr. Mudd's description of the development. There has been a reduction in 2 units to the plan. So there is now a proposal for 718 residential units in total. The breakdown of those units are as follows. There are 194 townhouse units. The townhouse units have now been revised so that each individual townhouse will have 2-car parking on the driveway as well as in the garage. So there are no townhouse units proposed under this plan that would have a single driveway and single garage. Just wanted to point that out for council. There are 332 single detached dwellings proposed in a variety of different lot sizes. There are 118 units on 52-foot lots. That is the light yellow color. The darker yellow color represents the 166 units on 45-foot detached lots. And then finally, the light orange color are 48 units on 35-foot detached lots. The residential apartment blocks in the light brown, currently there are 3 blocks in total. And the proposal, as has been mentioned, is for there to be a condo apartment building on 1 block, an active seniors building on a 2nd block, and the 3rd block would be an actual assisted seniors living development for those that are at that stage in their life. The rough unit count we've identified as part of the 718 units on the plan, but these units will be refined as these individual blocks, Your Worship, will have to go through a subsequent application prior to any development taking place through site plan approval. So that would require an additional council approval for those individual blocks, and there may be some refinement to the overall unit count and style of development in terms of size of the overall massing of the building, but they will have to comply with the zoning that is being considered for approval under this application. The new public elementary school is in the light pink. I've highlighted that already. There's a total of 13 new municipal roads that vary in width from 20 meters wide for the main roads through the site, servicing the collector road, Street B, which connects County Road 10 to Fallis Line, as well as Street M, which is the street that the school has got frontage on, as well as some other critical streets, a portion of Street F that runs from Fallis Line over to Street A, just to ensure that traffic can be accommodated with a wider road allowance platform. The realigned water course is identified in the light green. And as you can see, it is an extensive corridor in which there will be a variety of trail linkages from municipal roads to provide public access for this beautiful new feature that we are hoping to create through this application. The other protected natural heritage features to the northwest outside of this development area will continue to be maintained. Next slide. So I just wanted to identify here the 3 different blocks. I've gone through those in some detail. The site plan identifies the proposed layout for block 367, which would contain a total of 128 dwelling units with a 4-story building height and a total of 1.25 parking spaces per unit, as well as an additional 0.25 spaces per unit for visitors. Next slide. The school block, if those of you that are wondering why the school block is more internal to the site versus located out on the main roads, being County Road 10 or Fallis Line, there's been a bit of a shift in thinking in terms of locating schools within communities. There's been the thought of taking schools off of main roads to ensure there is better safety and overall better traffic movement maintained on those roads, and diverting traffic more internally within school blocks and local streets to ensure greater safety. So the block that we've designed here, which the school board is in agreement with, provides adequate road frontage along Street M, as well as a controlled intersection at Fallis Line to ensure turning movements will protect at most vehicles and, more importantly, kids as they come to and from school. So from an official plan perspective, this is what we're proposing to change in the official plan. So the slide on the left identifies the modifications that we are proposing. So we are looking to relocate the natural linkage area, which represents the existing water course on the property, to the area that was identified on the previous slide in the draft plan. The area in purple hatching, we are proposing to redesignate from institutional to residential. That will allow the development that I've discussed. And the adjustment to the settlement area boundary would represent a total of 16.5 hectares, of which only represents a total of 22 additional lots to the overall development. The majority of the expansion to your settlement area is to accommodate the elementary school, the environmental protection realigned water course, and a stormwater management pond on the development. Next slide. From a zoning perspective, it is complicated, as I'm sure you can imagine. There's a variety of different zones that need to be put in place to ensure orderly development. This is a snapshot of what the planners need to sort out before there can be a bylaw presented to council. And this ultimately has the effect of approving the draft plan and establishing development standards for setbacks, coverages, heights, parking requirements, etc. I'd be very interested in hearing if council has any thoughts relative to, in particular, the apartment building blocks and the parking requirements for those blocks and the overall height of the buildings that we are proposing. Next slide. So from an environmental perspective, Dylan Consulting, who's available here this evening to answer any questions from members of council or staff, has been completing field work out on this property from the fall of 2016 up until the summer of 2020. There will be continued work as we continue moving forward with detailed design. But as you can see here, there's a number of studies and site visits that were completed to look at aquatic surveys, amphibian surveys, birds, botanical surveys, ELC, ecological land classification of the property, and overall wetland evaluation. Next slide. So the work here was comprehensive. As you can see, as I mentioned previously, the majority of the development area is taking place on the previously worked agricultural land. There are some minor tweaks taking place to wetland areas and the realignment of the water course. None of the work that is being completed from an environmental perspective is deemed to have a significant negative impact on the overall functions of the environmental features on the property. Next slide. So from a wetland perspective, there is in the northwest corner of the site, a wetland area. As you can see, it's been color coded based on the different types of wetland features on the left-hand part of the slide. So the green area represents the swamp community, the blue area, the marsh communities, and then the pink areas are marsh communities that no longer exist. Overall, Dylan Consulting completed an extensive analysis of the wetland feature, and the overall scoring of the wetland feature, which has been reviewed by the Ministry of Natural Resources, has been deemed to be considered a non-provincially significant wetland, which allows for some minor refinements that can take place through the development approval process and still ensuring no negative impact on those features. Next slide. So from a channel realignment perspective, the existing channel on the slides on the left and central part of this slide, we've provided an overall quantification of the area. So the existing channel that we are proposing to remove through this development is 0.25 hectares in area. The new channel that we are proposing to develop on the right-hand slide is 1.29 hectares. So there will be a significant overall net increase in the overall environmental feature and protection that will last in perpetuity should council consider approving this application. So overall impacts and mitigation, there will be a number of mitigation measures that will be approved by the township, the county, as well as ORCA. We are working through those mitigation measures as we speak. We've provided here a summary on the right just to give council a very transparent view as to what the mitigation measures and compensation may look like. And overall, as I mentioned, this will be a positive net benefit to the features that exist in place. So in conclusion, we're going to turn this back to you, Your Worship. There are 718 residential units. There's a variety of different residential types. There's also a new public elementary school, a realigned water course, and the overall protection of natural heritage features. We're very interested in hearing council's thoughts on the application and members of the public. And at this time, we would welcome any questions or comments.
Very good. Thank you very much, Darren. So we will move along then. Any questions from members of council? Okay, Seeing none, then what I will do is I will open it up for comments from the members of the public. So looking at the attendees, if you wish to speak or ask a question, please just raise your hand. Our clerk will let you in, unmute you so that you can address staff. Okay, we have hand up, Doug and Pauline Brody. Madam Clerk.
Hi, good evening.
Very good. So if you can just identify who's speaking and your address for the clerk, that would be great. And then you can proceed.
Okay, my name's Pauline Brody, my husband Doug Brody. We live at 29 Fern Ridge Heights. My question is, you have this proposal to, I have no objection whatsoever to a third subdivision or to a long-term care home. I'm really on the fence about apartments. I didn't expect to move up here to have apartment buildings be seen. I have no objection to a 4-story building. Anything above that, I have huge objections to.
Okay, is it a question then? Do you want the
Well, I
consultant
want to
respond?
know how high you're planning on building this apartment building.
Okay, so I will turn that then over to Mr. Vila, who wishes to respond. There you are.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship, and over to Mr. and Mrs. Brody. So the current proposal is for these buildings to be 4 stories in height. So they are not proposed to be greater than 4 stories.
Beautiful.
Okay, that's fine, as long as you're not going to be any higher than that.
Okay,
Okay, that works for us.
thank you.
Thank
Very
you.
good.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, I'm now looking back to the attendees. Again, if you wish to speak or ask a question, simply raise your hand and we will let you in, unmute you so that you can ask your question. Okay, we have a Glenn Spurl.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff, and can I be heard?
You can be heard, and we're going
Okay.
to start, Glenn, with your obviously your name and then your address, please.
Yes, Glenn Spurl, Prince Street, Millbrook.
Sorry, the number?
Oh, 7.
There we
7
go.
Prince.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, councillors, staff, and residents. It's very interesting. We're talking about this development this evening when the Supreme Court has just made an important ruling today about once again on climate change and that it is a real and existential threat. But first, let me say I welcome all newcomers to our beautiful township of Cavan Monaghan. I'm wondering, I have a couple of questions. I'm wondering, John Connolly is a new staff member. I'm not quite sure the parameters of his job. How does his job in planning and development intersect with the Climate Change Action Plan?
Relative to this subdivision?
Well, this subdivision is growth, and obviously it will bring more carbon when we're supposed to be reducing. And that's part of our Climate Change Action Plan.
Okay, I don't know whether Mr. Connolly wishes to speak to that or whether it would be Ms. Ayatt who deals with the Climate Change Action Plan, but either of you is welcome to provide input to Mr. Spurl.
So through you, Chair, to Council and also to Mrs. Spurl, is that climate change is part of, in terms of the work we do at the township, it's part of all the work we do. So from that standpoint, Bridget Ayatt, who is the Economic Development Coordinator, also doing some key work on the Climate Change Action Plan. She is part of my staff and we work as a team. So that work is not only within the township, but very specifically within the planning and economic development. My responsibilities include not just planning, but also the building department, former building department, as well as economic development. I hope that answers your question, Mr. Spurl.
Thank you. And so, but Mr. Connolly, I don't quite understand. So you're a senior employee now. And so how does your job intersect with the Climate Change Action Plan, specifically in mitigation and adaptation?
So Mr. Spurl, we need to relate it back to the subdivision, right?
But the subdivision is growth.
Right.
And we are not we're already not on track with our climate change action plan.
I know, but it's a public meeting specific to the subdivision, so we can certainly answer it relative to the subdivision, but not a general question and answer period outside of the subdivision. So with all due respect, Mr. Conley, you can certainly answer it, but please keep it in line with specifically with the subdivision that we're being discussed.
Exercise number 1.
Oh, I can hear somebody speaking and I don't know who it is.
It's not me.
I'm looking for who has their mics open. Okay. Mr. Conley or Ms. Hyatt, anything further to add specific relative to the subdivision, please?
On this one, I'll ask if Ms. Hyatt, Bridget, if she could add to this.
Hi, sorry. I wasn't expecting to actually provide comment on it in terms of the climate change action plan. Obviously, this development is part of our growth strategy. So our provincial policy requires that we allow for a certain amount of growth, which I'm certain Mr. Conley can speak to, Mr. Spurl. With regards to communities, our climate change action plan focuses on mitigation in terms of how to build to reduce our carbon footprint. We would obviously look to the building code to guide that, which the provincial policy with regards to building homes is starting to incorporate a little bit more aggressively climate change initiatives. Right now, that's the best answer I can give you, and I can try and provide a little bit more detailed answer at a later date.
Thank you, Bridget. Can I open up the question a little bit more, because I'm very, very unclear. How does the official plan intersect with the climate change action plan?
So, Mr. Spurl, we're going to keep it focused. So the official plan is being changed relative to this development. So if, as long as you're focusing the questions on the development tonight, absolutely in line. So how does the official plan change that's being asked for tonight? Sorry, fill in the blanks of all the last part of your question.
Yes, so how did the changes to the official plan tonight affect our climate change action plan? None of the literature for tonight mentioned the climate change action plan at all.
Well, so through your worship, through council, and to Mr. Spurl, part of the reason is that the purpose of this meeting is the Planning Act. So it's really to meet the requirements of the Planning Act with respect to providing public input, which you are providing. If you're looking for specific measures, the report that's before council more or less explains the application, taking a look at the provincial planning framework as well as the PPS, the growth plan. That also includes the idea that our official plan and growth has to take into consideration climate change. Although it isn't elaborated in the report before council now, it will be when we bring it back to council. And if there's some specific questions, I'm more than happy to be able to take those and reply at a later date before we, and also when we bring this back to council. So if there are some specific questions related to climate change in this development, that's something we can provide. And as we come back to council, we can answer those questions.
Thank you, Mr. Connolly. And through you, Mayor, no specific questions, except I do want to note that the environmental impact work on this, of course, had nothing to do with climate change.
Okay. Any further questions, Mr. Spurl, before you could put back out with the attendees and we bring somebody else in?
No, thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much. Is there anybody else wishing to speak tonight or ask a question? Please raise your hand and you'll be acknowledged and brought in. Not seeing any, but given it's the technology, we're going to go really slow in case somebody's struggling to find the raise hand, because I've had that problem before too. And it did take a little bit. So I don't want to rush. I do want to give everybody an opportunity. We do have a panelist that has raised their hand, and I will acknowledge Councillor Huntley. Go ahead.
Through you, Chair. I was trying to take it nice and slow for you. I do have a question to the developer. I think it would be to Dylan specifically. And that would be around, or sorry, not Dylan, Darren. There's many Darrens, but the main Darren. And it's around the parking for the apartment / senior buildings. Has underground parking been considered to try to reduce the above ground parking footprint at all?
Through your worship to Councillor Huntley, at this stage, it hasn't, Councillor Huntley, but it's something that we could definitely consider. And obviously there are benefits to underground parking with allowing some more green space at the surface.
Okay, I would appreciate that being considered. That would be great. Back there.
You're on mute, your worship.
It was bound to happen. Any other questions, Councillor Huntley? We won't put you back out with the attendees. We will leave you in here, but none. Any other questions? Anybody else? Any attendees have any questions or any other members of council? Deputy Mayor Graham, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. And through you. This question's for Darren as well. With regards to the complexes, let's call them just apartment buildings for the sake of clarity. We've had conversations in the past about this subject, but I'm going to bring it. It pertains to primarily to the units that are specifically designated or identified to be more for our senior population. And the gist of my question surrounds the accessibility or building to an accessible standard. I would assume that, you know, we're discussing or identifying at least two of these facilities, you know, for levels of varied levels of individuals of varied levels of physical capability with regards to, you know, these facilities. Is the intention to build them to any sort of accessibility standard, or what sort of accommodations for that are going to be included? Because, you know, and we've talked about this before, but for the sake of brevity, you know, with the aging demographic in our population, there's a lack of accessible inventory when it comes to the complete community that we're pursuing in our official plan. And so obviously with these specific units identified for, you know, potentially this audience, but then within the other single dwellings as well, is there any opportunity for maybe in the other dwellings for them to have an option to be built to an accessibility standard to help us sort of address that lack of inventory in our community? And any comments to that would be appreciated.
Thank you, your worship. Through to Deputy Mayor Graham, all very good points. So from the condominium standpoint, I don't really want to call them apartments because we heard the comment earlier, but so, you know, these are going to be purchased by individuals who hopefully will take pride in their units, but all of the buildings will have to be built to an accessible standard. They'll require elevators, stairwells, obviously not for certain types of dysfunctions, but they will have to be built in accordance with building code standards for accessibility. From the low-rise perspective, you know, looking at low-density homes, if there was an individual that was purchasing a single detached home as an example and required an accessibility ramp to their unit, the builder would definitely have to accommodate that and adjust the grading accordingly and ensure that it meets the standards for that individual to live in that household. So I'm not completely on the building side, but I know that, you know, builders are taking a very close look at that as well as energy efficiency and electric vehicle charging stations and all sorts of things that are coming into the limelight as we continue to move on.
Excellent, thank you. And just a follow-up, Mayor, if I might, might I just simply request for consideration that the opportunities for that accommodation, maybe within the single detached or other sort of independent, let's call them builds, might be something that the builder and developers consider incorporating a bit more predominantly in some of the materials and promotional materials, so that it is, you know, it's definitely something that is needed. And it's not often something that is thought of to be asked for. I think we just don't have a lot of those sorts of individuals who are, aware of what they can ask for. So if any accommodations that you could throw up the ladder to that effect would be appreciated, because it's definitely something that we do need, and the easier and more accessible we can make it, the better. So thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Anybody wishing to ask any further questions, comments? I'll take my time for my own benefit as well, so I can move my mouse to the appropriate screen. Any other members of council? Any further questions, comments before we move into consideration of the report? Okay, seeing none. All right, so council, consideration of the report. We have the report before us, page 4, I believe, with the appropriate recommendations. The council review and consider all public and agency verbal and written comments received regarding these applications, and 2, that proposed draft plan conditions for the plan subdivision, official plan, and zoning bylaw amendments be presented to council at a future date for consideration. I have a mover. Deputy Mayor Graham, seconder. Councillor Moore. Any further questions, comments? Deputy Mayor Graham.
I'm not sure, through you, Mayor, I'm not sure if it requires any sort of formal direction to staff, but there had been an earlier discussion, and I'm not sure exactly what form it was in, about including the sort of deadline for the commenting period to be included on council agendas moving forward, just to add another level of, sort of transparency when we try to, alert people to these windows closing. Is that something that we might need to incorporate into additional recommendation in order for staff to be able to do that, if council is in favor of doing such a thing?
Very good, Mr. Conley.
Through your worship to Councillor Graham and the rest of council, effectively we can certainly provide a deadline if you want to, but really we will be accepting comment and any kind of public input from here until council deliberates on the final report. And what you will see is, following this public meeting, it'll take time for staff to review this, to take a look at everything that's been mentioned, any things that are gaps, anything that perhaps this report didn't talk about, like things like climate change or anything like any other details that came out. That will we will receive those comments up until the point where council deliberates that, and again, that will probably be in another month's time at best. But we can certainly, if you want to put a deadline, we can certainly do that. But it's our intention that, as it stands now under the Planning Act, it's all there for consideration up until the time that council makes a decision.
Yeah, and through you, Mayor, then maybe the inclusion, rather than from a deadline focus, as Mr. Conley has mentioned, maybe just the fact that it is open for comment and open-ended as of that might be a bit more accommodating. But again, I'm not sure, and I'll defer to the CAO if we require that direction, that level of direction to simply include it on the agendas. But I thought it just adds another layer of, we don't get to reach out to individuals very often. And if we can just include it, it's a simple thing to let people know that the window's still open, and they can submit their comments if they wish.
Mr. Conley, as a minimum, what is the commenting period under the Planning Act?
Well, in terms of the commenting period, there's a minimum. So right now, what we've done is we're to satisfy the Planning Act, we have this regulation in terms of, this meeting. So there's nothing that specifically states as to when it'll be cut off. What this process, like this application, has been under consideration from its original concept since 2018. This resubmission through June of last year. We had a neighborhood meeting in January, as Mr. Vila had talked about, and also this public meeting. So from our standpoint, we are willing to accept comments on this as we go forward. And I'll also remind council that we will also be coming back to council a number of times, because as Mr. Mudd had indicated, there are a certain number of approvals through the plan of subdivision and the official plan amendment that will go to county council as well. And obviously county council will look at those in terms of comments as well. So there's plenty of opportunity to still provide input. But again, if there's anything specific you want to add as a deadline, we can do that too.
Okay, very good. And I'll also look to Mr. Mudd to make sure we cover off all our bases. Mr. Mudd, is it a minimum of 30 days? Comment?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, as noted, when we do the notice of complete application and notice of the public meeting, when that comes about, essentially the comment period is open from when we deem the application complete. If people want to, all the information is on the website. We've been accepting comments from the public since 2018. Again, as Mr. Conley said, there's no sort of finite deadline for comments to come in. we can accept them right up until the matter is dealt with at council, whether it be township council or county council. Obviously, it's beneficial to us if people have had time to digest the meeting tonight and see the information online and provide that information before we prepare our formal report for consideration before our respective councils. But in theory, it's open up until the councils deal with the matter.
Very good. And just for the benefit of those that are listening or listen at a later date, the process thus moving forward by the township is, I'll let Mr. Conley speak to it and Mr. Mudd to what will happen on the county side. Go ahead, Mr. Conley first.
So in terms of from a process perspective, so tonight what happens is, so the public meeting was to get input on the applications, and technically speaking, as we said, that that the public can still provide comment up until when the county deals on some of these. With respect to the official plan amendment, so what will happen is we will bring back to council, staff will bring back to council. We need time to take a look at not only what we have before us, but the comments we received. We'll come back to council with that. Once that review is completed, we'll bring forward a report to council about the OPA and the zoning bylaw applications. The OPA is actually, as Mr. Mudd had indicated, that's actually sent to the county. So when this report is brought forward to council, the notice of council decision is then provided in accordance with requirements of the Planning Act, which means that when it's adopted by the township, the OPA, if it's approved, will be sent to the county for their review and their approval. Once a decision is made, the county issues that notice of decision. There's an appeal period there. On the zoning bylaw amendment, that's actually the township is the approval authority for that. So what happens there is typically and historically, the township has not approved the zoning bylaw amendment until such time as the plan of subdivision has also been approved. And the township is reasonably sure that there are no changes or adjustments that are going to happen to the zoning that may be required. So again, the township would provide the notice of passing. There's a 20-day appeal period with the zoning bylaw process. But again, the council report will come back with the plan of subdivision. With this report, staff will assess the applications and then giving council the decision on both those two things. The county will then take the decisions, the positions of the township, and they'll look at that with respect to the subdivision. I'll allow Mr. Mudd to provide more detail on that. But what happens is when the township's dealt with that, that goes to the county makes its decision. They give a notice of decision of what there is. There's an appeal period there. Then it will all come back together to the township to take all these pieces together and then proceed with the final implementation of those decisions.
Very good. And Mr. Mudd, to finish that one off.
Yeah, just to follow up on Mr. Connolly. So the first step in this process, obviously, the official plan sets the principle of development. And so the subdivision plan can't be dealt with until the official plan amendment is dealt with first. So as Mr. Connolly mentioned, that would be adopted by council, forwarded to the county, and county council would make a decision on that matter as far as final approving the official plan amendment. We are still in discussions with various agencies with respect to draft plan conditions related to the subdivision, and one of those agencies is in fact the township. So when we get all of those agency comments in and we see that there's no outstanding issues related to the development and all the respective agencies have provided their sign off or conditions that they want imposed through the draft plan approval, we would then be in a position to prepare our formal planning report to bring forward to county council for consideration and a decision. And as Mr. Connolly noted, if county council approves the plan, it would have draft plan approval. The developer would have 3 years to go through the process to finalize the plan and either address the draft plan conditions either through the subdivision agreement or through actual on-the-ground works. When all of those are completed or identified and established through the subdivision agreement, they can then provide the final plan to the county and we can give final approval and the plan is registered. After, I should note that after any of the decisions by county council, as noted by Mr. Connolly, there is an appeal period associated with their decisions and it's 20 days in length. And if there's no appeals at the end of those dates, then the decisions are in full force and effect.
Very good. Deputy Mayor Graham.
Through you, Mayor, there's just I just submitted I noticed that there was a question in the chat, but the individual, I just sent a brief response just asking for the person's full name and address. And then once I see it, I can bring it to your attention to, to maybe provide an answer, just so we're all copacetic with the standards.
Madam Clerk, as a counselor, can I just read the question? We're all dealing with technology at this point.
Through your Mayor McFadden, I would suggest it's similar to the question that Councillor Huntley has asked, so we could definitely read it out loud. And as Deputy Mayor Graham has inquired here, if we do get the name and address, we can respond accordingly and have them added to the record.
Okay, very good. Okay, so the question is, can council put restrictions on the developer, i.e. require underground parking or an above ground parking garage, whichever is greener and maximizes green space? So looking to staff.
So in terms of through you, Mayor, to the council and also to the person, James, I think is providing the question, those are part of the conditions of approval and part of the discussions that we'll have going forward with the developer. So we can put those restrictions. The detail again are something that as we get to those more detailed blocks, we would provide that. And I think also the county would maybe in some cases may have some interest on those conditions of approval. But yes, we would be looking at conditions of approval on that.
Okay, very good. Excellent. All right, team, did you see any other questions laying around here or hands up somewhere? I got 3 windows going and I want to make sure that everybody has an ample opportunity to speak or ask their question, and I don't want to miss anybody. Thank you. I had about 5 different people tell me that there's a question in the chat room, which I clearly didn't see. So thank you. Thanks to each of you for bringing that to my attention. I do not see any further hands up under attendees. I don't see any panelists hands up. I don't see any questions in the chat room. I think I've got everything. Anybody see anything else that I don't see that somebody wishes to speak? We do have a motion on the floor. It has been moved and duly seconded. If there's no further discussion, I will ask Madam Clerk, please call for a recorded vote.
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Mayor McFadden,
Yes.
Councillor Moore,
No, there, yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Councillor Belch.
Yes.
Excellent. Motion has passed. And with that, I would like a resolution to close the public meeting. Deputy Mayor Graham, Councillor Huntley, Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Mayor McFadden,
Yes.
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Councillor Belch,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Councillor Moore.
Yes.
Very good. Motion has passed. The public meeting has closed. I do want to personally thank all the members of staff, council, as well as our county council staff, as well as the developer and the proponents and the citizens, and even Deputy Mayor Jim Whalen up in North Kawartha. Thank you for tuning in on behalf of the county this evening to participate in this public meeting. Thank you everybody for putting together and for all the time that's gone into making this meeting happen. So thank you. And with that, I've got item 8.1 being the confirming bylaw number 2021-17, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the special meeting held March 25th, 2021. You read it for a second, third time, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the corporate seal attached thereto, moved by
Tim.
Councillor Belch and Deputy Mayor Graham. Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Councillor Moore,
Yes.
Councillor Belch,
Yes.
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Mayor McFadden,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham.
Yes.
Motion is approved. And our final motion of the evening would be our motion to adjourn. Deputy Mayor Graham, Councillor Huntley. Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Councillor Moore,
Yes.
Councillor Belch,
Yes.
and Mayor McFadden.
Yes, motion is approved. Meeting is adjourned. Good night, everybody. Thank you.